Have you ever had that feeling that the old leadership playbook just isn't working anymore? Well, you're not alone. So let's start with a big question. What if we've been looking at leadership all wrong? What if the key to success isn't about being the smartest, strongest, most heroic person in the room? What if, instead, it's about something way more human? Something like sharing power and making friends. I know, it might sound a little too simple, but these two ideas are totally reshaping how we think about leading. Let's break it all down. All right, so first up, let's talk about the problem we're facing, the modern leadership problem. Why is that old playbook officially broken? Okay, check out this number because it should really make every leader out there sit up and pay attention. 48%. According to one study, that's how many workers have actually quit a job because it just wasn't what they were sold. That's a huge disconnect between promise and reality, and it's costing companies big time. And that disconnect, it has some really serious consequences. We're talking about a revolving door of employees, engagement numbers that are just in the basement, and this rising culture of quiet quitters. You know, that 80% of employees who are either just phoning it in or are actively disengaged. It's a huge problem. So how do we start to fix this? Well, it all begins with a really fundamental shift in how we think about power, moving away from that traditional top-down model to something called shared leadership. Now, this probably looks pretty familiar, right? This is the old way. It's that rigid top-down pyramid where the execs at the top make all the calls and information only flows one way, down. It's a model that basically trains people to just sit back and wait for instructions. But what if we just flipped that whole model on its head? This is the new way. And you'll notice it's not a pyramid. It's more like a dynamic, interconnected network. In this world, leadership isn't a title somebody holds. It's a responsibility that's shared among everyone, employees, managers, the whole team. So what do we actually mean by shared leadership? Well, at its core, it's a collaborative approach where things like responsibility and the authority to make decisions are spread out among the team members. It's all about creating a culture where everyone has a voice, not just the folks with the corner office. Now, this all sounds great in theory, doesn't it? But let's be real for a second. Does this kind of collaborative, decentralized model actually work out there in the messy, real world? And the answer is a huge yes. You see it in action at massive tech companies like Google and Valve, at beloved retailers like REI, and even in these giant open source projects like the Linux and Ubuntu communities. These are all places that absolutely thrive on shared ownership and collaboration. Okay, so you get the what, but what about the how? How do you actually do it? Let's get practical with a really great actionable framework from entrepreneur and author Ernie Turner. He calls it the 5 shared disciplines. You know, Turner puts it perfectly here. The leadership shoe is becoming too big for any one person to wear alone. Think about that. In a world that's this complex, no single person can possibly have all the answers. The whole idea of the lone hero leader is just an outdated myth. And here is his practical guide, the 5 C's. It's a cycle. You start by connecting with people to build real, respectful relationships. Then you contract. You get aligned on expectations and who's accountable for what. Next, you collect ideas from everywhere, making sure every voice is heard to get real commitment. Then you all collaborate to create solutions together. And finally, and this one is so important, you constantly challenge the status quo because that's where innovation comes from. Okay, so shared leadership is all about taking care of your internal team. But what about all your external relationships? For that, let's check out the amazing leadership philosophy of Rita, which she calls "Our customers are friends." This simple quote, this is the core of her entire business empire. Happy associates make happy customers. See, it all starts on the inside. If your own team feels valued and empowered, that positive energy will naturally, almost automatically, extend out to your customers. It's such a simple idea, but it has a massive impact. And this next quote really tells you everything you need to know about the mindset behind her success. Persistence removes resistance. For her, there's always a way around a no. And her playbook is just full of these powerful common sense ideas. Treat every single customer like they're your best friend. Master the 10-foot rule, where you greet anyone who comes within 10 feet of you. Believe that you don't sell by telling people things, you sell by asking them questions. And always be ready to adjust to change, fast. It's a masterclass in building genuine human relationships. So we've got these two really powerful ideas, right? Shared leadership for your team on the inside and treating customers as friends on the outside. Let's put it all together and see what this new leadership playbook looks like. And here's how these two pieces fit together so perfectly. Shared leadership, that's focused on your internal team. The goal is to empower your employees, and you use the 5 C's to do it. The customers as friends philosophy, on the other hand, is focused on your external relationships. The goal is to build real customer loyalty, and you do it by treating them like you would a good friend. And this is the main takeaway right here. These are not separate competing ideas. They're two sides of the very same coin, a people-first philosophy. One builds up your team from the inside, and the other builds up your customer base from the outside. Together, they create this really strong, sustainable, human-centered foundation for success. And that brings us to one final thought for you to take away from all this. After seeing this new playbook, ask yourself, what is one single responsibility, just one thing, that you could share with your team tomorrow to start building this kind of culture? It's a small step for sure, but it could lead to a massive change.